How do you define happiness? How much of a positive impact will you have on society? And how much do you think your life's value is? These are such bizarre and abstract questions that nobody would have an answer to right away. Chances are, if you ponder these questions for quite a bit and evaluate the things you've done so far in life, you still might not be able to come up with a concrete answer. Well, these are the concepts that you're faced with in the novel and manga 3 Days of Happiness by Miyake Suguru. This is a story which left me speechless and lost for words by the end of it. It's a story that I had picked up and could not put down until I finished the entirety of it. It had me hooked. This is a story which was not a thriller, nor was it something action-packed, but it was something emotional and had me attached to knowing how a character's life will play out. It had me wondering about my own feelings around such abstract topics such as happiness and living. So firstly, let me give you guys a quick synopsis of what this manga exactly is about. So if you want to check it out for yourself, you can do so. So this manga starts off with us looking at a typical broke, depressed college student who's low on cash, has no real social status or standing, and is kind of done with life in a multitude of aspects. He is what a lot of us are in university or college, anxious and quite possibly low on happiness. Then one day, when he goes off to sell a bunch of his belongings for extra cash, he learns of a place where you can sell your lifespan for money. Now, that's an interesting topic, a brilliant hook. But the catch to this place is that the money you will get is dependent on how much your life is valued. This value takes into consideration your social standing, your societal impact, and many more things. Well, without too much to lose for, our MC takes this offer. Out of the 30 years and 3 months he had to live, he sold off 30 years. I had quite a few moments that got me thinking when I read this story. This was the very first one. I'm the type of person to believe that we as humans have incredible and almost infinite potential for a lot of things. So I fundamentally disagreed with putting a monetary value on any single moment of your life, hell, 30 years. Anyways, Kusunoki, our protagonist, does take this offer bestowed upon him, and he gets around 300,000 yen for it, which roughly translates to about $3,000 to use for the last 3 months of his life. Now, in order to make sure people don't do too many wild things, there is an observer sent to mark down and make sure people who sell their lives don't end up pulling some crazy stunt which harms people in their final few months on the earth. This observer cannot be seen by anybody apart from some animals and the person who sold their life. In Kusunoki's case, this observer was a girl named Miyake. Now, this is where the story truly begins, and we get to see what these two do in the final few months of Kusunoki's life. At this point, I'll give a little bit of a spoiler warning. I won't indulge into heavy spoilers, but spoilers nonetheless, so I recommend if you haven't read the 16-chapter manga, you do so. It's utterly brilliant. One of the most interesting aspects I found of this manga came right at the start. Right as our protagonist is waiting for his life to be evaluated based on some discrete number of things, we see him contemplating his childhood. This isn't like many flashbacks you see in anime and manga. We don't see some rosy world or a tragic Naruto swing moment. Rather, we just see Kusunoki's internal thoughts in a classroom. In this classroom, the teacher asked a very similar question to the young students, which included Kusunoki and another main character in the story named Himeno. Anyways, back then Kusunoki, a prodigious kid who believed in a life of a solo person, who carefully dissected others' behaviors in an almost pretentious manner, evaluated his life to be worth about 3 billion yen, which is in stark contrast to the Kusunoki of now, who is happy with an amount which is far less. I really enjoyed the whole aspect of Kusunoki looking back in time and thinking of things from a different paradigm and perspective than from now. It gives a realistic depiction of growth and how self-expectation can change through the passage of time. It's a brilliant narrative thing. This sort of flashback at the very start of the series is a beautiful storytelling move which allows us to immediately establish the thought process of our main character, and as time goes on, how his outlook and self-expectation can change. Man, Kusunoki is such a brilliantly and beautifully crafted character. I felt attached to him from the very start. Now, tackling one of the main themes of the story, which is happiness. One thing I took away from this story, especially the ending, is that a person's value can only truly be determined if they're living happily or not. If you're having the absolute time of your life, at that moment, your value is worth more than any number can suggest. That emotion of happiness is worth it all. Kusunoki experienced that with Miyagi near the ending few chapters of the manga, and that's when his value in life increased too. That's when his social status amongst his peers increased, and we got to literally see that. It was so beautiful to see Kusunoki's change from his meeting with Himeno to his vending machine endeavors to essentially living for himself and truly experiencing what life and the world had to offer. My good friend Fane made a beautiful video on what a great portrayal of positive nihilism this is, and I'll be sure to leave that video in the description below, and I recommend you all go check that out as well. But this whole change from sulking about life to going out there and living it, I love to see those changes. It really reminded me of the final episode of Your Lie in April, where we see Kaori's letter and how she went on to live for herself. It's a very similar looking thing, but in a totally different way, and I believe that this story does it in a very much more mature and realistic aspect. It shows the reality of life, it shows the grim circumstances people might have, and it shows how you can make the best outlook out of them. Now, speaking of the manga as a whole, I think Kusunoki and Miyagi's juxtaposition in their characters and the things they go through is just amazing to witness. It's like a whole crescendo which comes together when they come together. As I'm speaking on the technical aspects, I also want to talk about the manga's art. I don't think the manga's art is all that brilliant, nor do I think the paneling is superb. I just think that it's such an emotional and beautiful story that'll grip you to it. It'll make you want to go out there and live for yourself and choose to hold the things you hold dear to you and value them as well. If you have some extra time or just like the medium of novel, I really recommend checking out the novel. I just think it's a far better version of the story. It's a far better depiction of the story as well. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on the manga versus the novel. But yeah, I think that's it for this video. I just really wanted to talk about 3 Days of Happiness. It was such a beautiful story. It made me have emotions that I didn't think I had. And if you like this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to leave your own thoughts on this story in the comment sections down below, feel free to do so. And with that, I'll see you next time. Peace.